All right, so tell me about these weed gummies.
Weed is legal in Missouri. I bought weed
Mm.
legally here. And so
Yay.
I bought these gummies and I bought a few different kinds. But the one that I've been taking most regularly is called snoozeberry. And it's
To
for
sleep.
sleep, for sleepy.
Shocking.
And last night, or 2 nights ago, I'm sorry, I got in bed the same time that Jeff did, around 10:15, and I woke up at 10 a.m. So I slept real well.
You really did. Damn. Damn. And you have a whole sleeping setup too. Like you've got an eye mask and you've got pillows and yeah.
Yeah,
You're very comfy when you sleep.
I need certain things when I sleep. Yeah.
Wow, little
So
sleeping beauty.
yeah. And so moral of the story is that I took one last night as well. And it's a nice tool to use, but I
Mm.
also feel a little bit like I got hit over the head and I'm just like crawling out of a hole. But
You're just now waking up. How long did you
yeah.
sleep last night?
Well, I worked last night and then I stayed and hung out with friends. And so I don't think I got home until like 1 a.m. maybe.
Oh, wow.
So I got in bed around then. And then I think I woke up at like 10:30 maybe.
Okay.
But
That's a good night's sleep.
yeah, no, I mean, I'll take 9.5 hours.
I just really wanted to hear, like, all I was really interested in was like, did you wake up at 9 or did you wake up at 1? You know, like that kind of distinction.
Yes. No,
Yeah.
I've been awake for a couple hours now.
Amazing.
Yeah. And
Also, you're like in a tank top. I'm in a sweater. What's going on in Kansas City?
this
Is it
week,
just hot in your house?
no, it's a perfect temperature. This
Oh,
week was like in the upper 50s and like low 60s,
oh, gorgeous.
which was really nice. And so like our heat, we have our heat set to go on at whatever temperature, and so it hasn't even been going on. We haven't needed it. So
Good.
I'm just cozy in my
Yeah.
tank.
I'm so jelly of your tank. I feel it, to be fair, it's kind of warm here today. It's like 50, but
Yeah. Well,
I'm
in
still jelly of your
February,
tank.
it's weird.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
I have been filming a TV show, and so I have not really been outside much for the last 5 weeks. I've been spending a lot of time on a soundstage inside in the darkness.
Yeah.
So just to have a day where like I can look outside and see blue sky and sunlight is just a day that is a treat.
Yes. It's a
I get to work.
privilege.
It is a privilege. I get to work before the sun rises and I go home after. So
That's
what's the sun?
hard.
It's been rough. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like like the lack of vitamin D is affecting you?
Mm, yes. Yes. It's more just not having any natural sunlight. And to be fair, they're really good at recreating natural sunlight on a set. So when we're shooting day scenes, I don't really feel it much because we're in an office and it does feel like there's sunlight coming in through the windows we're shooting day scenes. When we're shooting night scenes, it is gnarly because it really feels like nighttime coming through the windows. Like it really feels realistic when you're like in on the set. And so when it's nighttime all day, it just really messes with your circadian rhythm. But when
Yeah.
it's daytime all day, it doesn't feel that crazy. It just like
Okay.
it's like the fresh air, like it's kind of dusty on set. Like I just miss like going for a walk in the middle of the day. I had Tuesday off this week and it was just glorious being able to be outside during the day.
Mhm.
And we're recording this on a Saturday. I got off of work yesterday at 4 o'clock on Friday,
Yeah.
and I was so psyched.
Good.
Yeah,
Did you get an hour of sunlight?
I did. I had some
Good.
errands to run, so I got those done. But just being able to be outside was really fantastic. And I think it really has given me a perspective when I'm done shooting this next week, being able to be outside during the day is going to feel so like a privilege, like such a
Mhm.
treat. And I think I'll just appreciate it so much more. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I'm excited for you. Who
Also, you look
knows?
glowing today.
It's because
Your
I
skin
slept
looks
for
great.
12 hours.
Oh, I'm so
Because
jealous.
I'm a vampire.
Yeah,
I
it's because you took
slept
what's
for
it
a
called again?
while. Snoozeberry.
Maybe I need some of those.
Maybe you do.
Snoozeberry.
Get it in New York, baby.
Yeah, I'm sure they do have it here. Do they have big dispensaries in Missouri?
I mean, they have a lot of dispensaries.
Yeah.
I went to like a small one that's nearby. It's like 3 minutes from my house. It was nice. It was nice to
I'm
just
not
kind of peruse.
I'm not much of a weed gal,
Hmm.
but it does seem to be functional for some things.
Yeah, I can do it in the evening
Yeah.
when I'm around specific people and also
Yeah.
when I know that I can like just get in my bed when I'm ready.
Yeah.
But to be like, I've done it. I smoked weed at a festival at Outside Lands in San
Ooh.
Francisco like years ago, and I ended up fainting. So I was like,
Oh no.
I think that's going to be a no. And
Did you smoke too
yeah,
much weed or what happened?
well, it's not the first time that happened to me, actually. That happened like 2 years prior where I took an edible and ended up fainting. And then I went to the emergency room to make sure that everything was fine. And they were like, "You're fine. You smoked weed. Sometimes weed can lower your blood pressure."
When you smoke weed at home and it lowers your blood pressure, you're fine
I'm already
because you
laying
could just
down.
yeah, you could just chill.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Wouldn't We Like to Know?
With Ariel.
And Linda, the podcast where we get honest, deep, and curious about life's big conversations.
Because we don't have to do it alone.
God bless.
Today on the pod, we kind of get into an impromptu conversation about alcohol and substances, to be honest,
Mm.
how we have used them in the past, how we're using them now.
Mm.
We talk a lot about coping mechanisms towards the end of the conversation.
Coping and also the reasons for consuming substances or putting ourselves in situations that, along the coping lines, made us feel better for one reason or another, or potentially actually didn't make us feel better,
Mm-hmm.
even though that's what we were trying to accomplish. Yeah.
We talk about our history with all of it. And then we
Mm-hmm.
also share judgments that both of us have had around
Yeah.
all of it and maybe how that shifted. So that was
Yeah.
a cool part of the conversation. Please subscribe to the podcast.
Mm.
Anywhere that you listen to podcasts, subscribe. Also, we have a YouTube channel. You can be watching this on the
Hello,
YouTubes.
YouTube.
Subscribe to us on there too.
Yeah. And also, you can send us any emails at wouldn'twelike to know@gmail.com. At the end of this conversation, we ask if you have any thoughts on these subjects, and we would love to hear from you. You can
Mm-hmm.
also follow us on Instagram at Wouldn't We Like to Know. We share lots of videos on there and pictures from our weeks. So join us there.
Enjoy the
Yeah.
episode. How are you otherwise?
Yeah. How am I otherwise? Well, speaking of fainting, I felt like I was going to faint quite a few times in the last few weeks, including today.
Oh my God.
I
See, it
think
is
I'm.
funny.
Yeah, I know, I love it. I've been going to PT for my knee because I have this like injury when I run. My knee really hurts. It's called runner's knee. I think it's like a pretty common injury. But I've been going to PT for it to rehab it, and quite a few times now I've gone to PT and felt like I was going to faint. And the first
Mm,
time my physical therapist brought me a cookie and like gave me eating bad. And she was like, "Did you eat?" And I had eaten like 3 hours before. It was like around lunchtime, so I'd eaten breakfast but I hadn't eaten lunch yet. But it happened again today, and I ate breakfast at like 10 and went at like noon. So I shouldn't
mm.
feel like I'm going to faint. So I'm kind of wondering what's going on with my body, that it just is like we would like to black out now.
Ooh.
Yeah, not great. So, and I feel like still a little like woozy today.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is it like after she does something to your knee? I wonder if it like is a sensation that makes you feel lightheaded.
It's after like a little bit of working out.
Yeah.
But I feel like that shouldn't, we're not doing work, like we're not working out so hard that I should feel like I'm going to faint,
Yeah. That's interesting.
theoretically. Yeah. But even now I feel like a little like,
Woozy.
yeah.
Ugh. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's not great. I mean, I did have 2 glasses of wine last night, which might be why I feel
Mm,
woozy. Maybe I'm just hungover. I don't know.
maybe that's it.
Maybe that's it. Maybe this is what it is like to get old. You have 2 glasses of wine and you're like, "I'm gonna faint."
Yeah, that feels right to me.
Does it?
Well, whether it's I'm going to faint or just like I'm going to regret this in the morning or whatever. Yeah.
2 glasses?
I can't handle drinking a lot anymore at all.
No.
I will like feel
What's your
fine in the
limit?
moment.
Yeah.
It kind of depends. If I'm like having dinner and drinking at the same time, then I have a little bit more leeway. But like after work, if I haven't eaten, I
Mm,
can have I can have a drink and feel fine. If I have two drinks, then I'm like on the edge. But if I have three,
yeah.
like, oh, I wake up
Game
feeling like
over.
crap. Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny because when I was at dinner, I was talking to my friend and she was like, "I 2 drinks is my max tonight because I've noticed since turning 30, like, I can't handle more than that." And I was like, "Oh, how funny." And then the next morning, it was me.
Yeah. Yeah, girl, that's what happens. Yeah. I mean,
And I'm a month away from 30, so I guess it's all catching up with me.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny with drinking because I'm like, oh, I should be able to do this, or the people around me are drinking in this way. And I
Yeah.
think with me, especially, I I have two speeds. I'm either like drinking and normal slash a little more excited, or
Mhm.
I'm like vomiting. Like there's not an in between period. And I feel like I've had friends that are like, I want to see you like go crazy. And it's just, I don't have that in between period.
Yeah.
I will just be dead.
Mm. Yeah.
And so that's not fun for anybody either.
Yeah. It
So,
escalates quickly. I feel like I have my tips and tricks that work for my body to not feel hungover the next day. Like, I always try to, like, down an like, 16 ounces of electrolytes before I go to sleep, and then I have another one next to my bed so I can down that,
mm,
and that seems to be, like, pretty foolproof for me as long as I've stuck to one type of alcohol, like red wine or tequila or, like, within the, like, realm. I feel fine the next day usually, but I think it really hit me hard because I didn't expect it. I didn't think after 2 glasses of wine I would wake up feeling like a little dizzy.
mm,
And I think
yeah,
that's just an adjustment I'm gonna have to make. That if I drink anything, I need to treat it like when I was 22 and I had like 7 drinks in one night.
yeah. It's crazy to think about how like embedded it is in our culture and how embedded it felt in my life, I guess, for such a long time. And now I'm like,
Mm.
oh, I guess I just can't do that anymore. It becomes like
Yeah.
a choice where there are so many other things that I want to do and accomplish and like ways that I want to feel
Mhm.
that for the most part, drinking that much just doesn't fit in with that. And
Yeah.
it's more about like me being an adult and taking care of myself and saying I can't have more than this. And if I
Yeah.
do, that's also a choice, but I'm going to have to deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think it's like a tolerance thing too. Like I'm glad that my tolerance is low. I don't want to raise my tolerance. I don't want to drink a bunch. Like I don't like the feeling of being super drunk. I like feeling like a little buzzy and then going to sleep.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be like sloshed anymore. I
Yeah.
remember when I was first going to therapy, my therapist told me that she was like, "How much do you drink like on any given night, like when you go out?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't ever count. Maybe like 6 or 7 drinks." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And I like everybody else did the same thing. Like it wasn't
Mhm.
weird. I never thought twice about it. And then she told me that the definition of binge drinking is drinking more than 4 drinks in a night.
Mm.
And I was like, "Wow, I am every weekend I'm binge drinking and everybody else around me is and we like literally don't think twice about it. It doesn't feel abnormal."
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that like really changed the way that I thought about the way I was drinking because I realized, whoa, this is actually a lot of booze all at once.
Mhm.
And I've never there was only one time that I ever threw up from drinking. So it's not like I was making myself sick. Like I didn't think there was an issue because I was like, well, I'm not puking, so I must be fine.
Mhm.
But like it was a lot of alcohol,
Yeah. I know that
drinking that
blows my
much.
mind when you told me you've only thrown up once. I've thrown up
Yeah.
so many times, which is probably another signal of like, stop. I haven't thrown up in a while from drinking, but that's what will happen. It's funny because some people are like, well, when I throw up, after I throw up, I feel better. For me, if I
Mm,
throw up, like that is going to be me for a while. And I'm also going to feel like death.
yeah.
I have such an appreciation for like the beverage industry and like learning about wines. And obviously, I've like worked in
Mm,
so many restaurants that like cocktails and all of that is really exciting to me. And I like to taste and I like to learn more about all of it. And at one point, I thought about like getting my sommelier certification and like
mm,
going that route. And again, it's one of those things that I'm like, I don't think that that really fits in with the rest of what I want to do. And I think that
mm,
it is just personally, I can't handle it. There are people that
mm,
can handle more than I can. And for me,
mm,
it's like, it's a no. So it's funny on one hand to like have this desire to learn more about the beverages and the wines. And then on the other hand, it's like, it's actually poisonous to my body. And that's sad.
it is
That's like,
sad.
yeah. And there are times where I feel like I'm like missing out on the fun if I don't have more, or I don't know. It feels so ingrained in so much. But I really only like drink on the weekends and I'll have like one or two. I
Yeah.
have come to the place where I know my own limits, but it's just funny how things used to be and then how they are now. Where
Yeah.
there's this tiny part of me that feels like I'm missing out on something.
Mm. Okay, that's so interesting. There's two different ways that I can take this conversation. One was like I just wanted to talk generally about like drinking and like I wanted to ask you about like your parents' attitude toward drinking growing up and like what that was like. But then also the other way, and something you just said of like part of me, I think you said like wants to rebel and like I feel like I'm missing out is kind of the thing that
Mhm.
you said. And like this feeling of growing up and behaving in one way. For me, it was like because I wanted to be good all the time. And then at a certain point in my early 20s, feeling like I wanted to rebel against all of those things and do things that were like objectively more harmful for me, like from a healthy perspective. But I wanted to do them because I was so repressed and I didn't care. I just wanted to like fuck up so
Mhm.
badly.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate to that to an extent. I mean, I grew up where like we were allowed to have sips of alcohol. Like it wasn't a big deal. We could taste wine and like have a sip of this beer. And, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but like before I turned 21, it was okay for my friends to be over and have something to drink as long as we weren't driving and didn't go crazy. But like it was
Yeah.
very much like this is something that is like a fun add on and you can do it responsibly. And it shouldn't feel like it's this thing that is so built up and you can't
Right.
do it because then, yeah, it sounds like it was a little bit of the opposite for you where you felt like it was maybe forbidden or you didn't want to go there. And then it felt like you wanted to do a lot of it at once.
Not with alcohol. Like for that, yeah, that was like more in like in a different direction. With alcohol, I grew up with it being very normalized. Like my mom had in Holland, we had like a bike shed, and she had our entire bike shed was bottles of wine. Like my mom like loves wine, is really passionate about how different wines are made, like the art of wine. And she was even part of
Mm-hmm.
like a wine club like working to be a sommelier. She loves wine. And then growing up in Northern California, obviously there's a huge wine culture there. And we would go to Napa all the time and Sonoma all the time. Like it's a 30-minute drive away. So,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom, even when I was in high school, well, when I was in high school, I lived in Holland when I was 16 and I turned legal when I was there. So I would go to the bar and we would like hang out there. Like it was just like a Friday, Saturday night activity. And then coming back to the US, that I couldn't drink again. But like growing up, when I was really little, my mom would give me wine with water in it. We called it Kinderwein or children's wine. And when I was in high school, I also don't want to get anyone in trouble, but my mom would buy me like stuff from like Bevmo that I really liked. Like I loved this German beer from Berlin called Berliner Weisse mit
I
Süß.
love Berliner Weisse.
Ah, it's so good. It's so
Yeah,
good. That was
it's
like my
so good.
first favorite beer when I was like 15 or 16. And I went to visit my friend Nicole in Germany because she was an exchange student in the US and then she went back home. And we would like drink Berliner Weisse mit Süß all the time. And like the raspberry version was my favorite.
Mm,
And so, like, you couldn't find it anywhere, so she found this, like, one that was really similar at Bevmo, and she would buy it for me every once in a while. So, like, it was just very normalized, and, like, I never drank it to get drunk. It was just because it was yummy, you know? And
mhm,
because it was part of, like, a nice dinner or, it's like a treat. It's like a fun thing to have.
mhm,
And then when I was in college, like, I really didn't drink very much because it didn't feel like this new special thing to do.
mm,
It was like when I got out of college, like being in New York, being 22, the thing that you did on a Friday night was like you went out and went to the bars or went to clubs, you know? So then I ended up drinking a lot because it was like, well, that's just the thing that we're all doing.
mhm,
That's the social scene. So I drank a lot then, but it didn't feel like a rebellious thing. But I think like I've always had like a very healthy relationship with alcohol. And I think it's because my mom, but also like my culture back in Holland, it never made it something that was not allowed.
mhm. What were you
The other
meaning when you said, like, you wanted to be good so badly
Yeah, so
that
that is
yeah.
more like the Christian aspect of it, and then more with like sex and drugs and things like that.
Mm, mhm,
Because like that stuff was very, very off limits.
mm,
I'll just say like that's something that's kind of reappeared in my mind recently and remembering that part of my life where I wanted to do things because they felt rebellious and because I felt like I wasn't allowed to do them for such a long time. It was like this like moral high ground of if I do that then I'm bad and if I don't do that then I'm like not better than others but like I'm yeah, I guess kind of better than others. Like I feel like I'm doing it the right way and they're doing it the wrong way and they're hurting themselves by like being promiscuous or like having sex before they get married. And it really led to this point when I was maybe like 24, 25, where I just wanted to be like other people so badly. I just wanted like I wanted to have sex and I saw like I would hang out with these people who would do drugs and I wasn't doing them, but I like thought it was like cool and sexy that we were at the club and like we were going to the bathroom and everybody was doing cocaine and like I didn't think about how risky that is and
mm,
like the consequences of that kind of behavior. And I thought it was just like cool to be friends with people who did that all of that stuff because it felt like something I wasn't allowed to do. And so doing it made me feel rebellious and cool.
mm. So it wasn't as much about drinking as it
No,
was,
no, no.
like, surrounding yourself with, like, a new group of people that were doing things that, like, previously, because of Christianity, you felt a different way about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the drinking is not the through line. It was more just what you said about like wanting what other people have sometimes.
Mhm.
And it just reminded me of that kind of conversation. It was more about like sex and drugs and partying
Mhm.
versus alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that like, looking back, how did you feel in those situations? Do you think that you honestly felt like, "This is so cool, I'm having fun, and this is new and different," or do you feel maybe like it was a pendulum swinging the wrong way, or did you
I
you
think it
know?
was I think it was both. Like it was 100% a pendulum swinging the wrong way. Like, now I feel
Mhm.
like I found my middle ground where I can do what feels good to me, but I'm not harming myself, and I'm thoughtful, and I make decisions more soundly than I used to. But I
Mhm.
definitely feel like I had the pendulum swing the other way because I got into a relationship with someone who was very toxic without even thinking about the potential consequences to myself. Like, I just wanted so badly to have this like very rebellious person love me and choose me that I just like jumped into something that had red flags all over it. But even before that, I was hanging out with this group of people that it was so enticing to me because they came from a strata of wealth that I had never really had access to or been a part of. And they just lived in such a different way. Like, we'd go to bars and we would just walk right in. Like, there'd be lines outside and the bouncers would just let us right in, and we'd have tables waiting for us, and then we'd leave there and, hop in the SUV with the driver and go to the next spot, and they would have a table for us and we just walk right in. It was just like,
Mhm.
and we would go to
Glamorous.
it was so glamorous and so
Yeah.
sexy, and like, we'd go to the bathroom and everybody would do cocaine. And I remember the first time it happened, like, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go to the bathroom. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like, so innocent and
We're
not
all
even
gonna go
thinking about
pee
it.
at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. The boys and the girls. And then we all got like, my friend like dragged me into the bathroom stall with all of them. And I was like, "What are we doing in here?" And they start
Oh.
doing cocaine. And they were like, "Do you want some?" And I was like, "No, I'm okay."
Mhm.
And they looked at me like, "Why the fuck are you here then?" And I didn't wanna be like, "Oh, I didn't know we were going to the bathroom to do cocaine."
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just, like, put myself in these situations, and I thought it was so cool to be in these situations. Like, "Oh, we're the people that, like, everybody's, like, envious of, and, like, they all wanna get into the club so easily." And I've seen movies, like, I've seen TV shows, like, this is what the cool kids do. Like,
Mhm.
this feels like the underground scene. Like, it just felt so cool and, like, sexy to me. And, like, I didn't think about the consequences of somebody ODing or something having fentanyl in it, or, like, the cops busting the place. Like, it just was so normalized. And, yeah, I didn't think about the risks to myself at all. Like, that wasn't part of my thought process. I didn't think about it. I just was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I found myself here, so I'll just, like, go with the flow and see what happens," you know?
Yeah. I think it can be so nice to have those experiences though too. Like
Yeah.
obviously now it's like okay, we could see the dark side and I've known people that I knew when I was younger who have died from overdoses and
Yeah.
I like have experienced the dark side of it. And at the same time like sometimes it can be nice to see the other side. You know what I mean? For you
Yeah.
to have gotten into that group and had that experience, if for no other reason than to know that it wasn't for you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Cuz
Yeah.
I definitely can understand and relate to following along what I think I should do or what it seems like everyone's doing. I'm 22, I'm 23. Let's go out to the bars and do this. Like that's just kind of it was built in. Even in high
Mhm.
school, it was like let's go to a party, let's drink a lot, let's do this. And I don't think that there's anything like wrong with any of that, to be honest, because it's exploration. And yes, there are times where it can be unsafe and that is scary. But at the same time, it's like us pushing our limits and seeing what feels good. And I think for me, maybe in the moment I was like, oh, this is good because I am at this party with people that I wouldn't normally be talking to. And like, I I fear that they think that I'm just like weird and awkward, but me being
Yeah.
at this party is showing that like I'm actually cool and I know
Right.
what's going on and I'm with it
Yeah. That's
and
how
then
I
like
felt too.
Yeah. And then in hindsight, I know that I wasn't actually having a good time. Like there was this
Yeah.
tiny egoic part of me that was having a good time, but there was a bigger part of me that felt really lonely. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this isn't the kind of connection that I'm looking for. I think that all of that for me was trying to find connection in other people. And I didn't have examples in my life of like other ways to get that.
Yeah.
Thinking specifically in high school when I would go to parties. And I remember one specific party where everyone was drunk, I was drunk, and I just started crying because I kind of got into it with
Mm.
this guy who was hitting on my friend. And then everyone was like telling me that I was being, I don't know, uptight. I don't remember the words that they used, but I was like trying to protect my friend from this guy who that she was not interested in.
Yeah.
And I just ended up crying at the party. And it was just like, I am not meant to be here. That's what this is telling me. But, you know, you're young. I was young. I didn't know any better. And so it's interesting to deal with that now as an adult. Like, I feel like I have so much more insight on what actually feels good to me. And I can have a really great time when I drink too much. Like, that's true.
Yeah.
And I can also have a really good time when I don't drink at all.
Yeah.
That's true too. And so I think it comes down to like, what choice do I want to make today? Like, if I'm hanging out with this person that I haven't seen in a really long time and like we're going to have some wine together, like maybe that's my choice for the day. And tomorrow's just going to be a little tired and I'm going to be a little irritable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like the understanding and the self awareness that I'm making that choice versus just like going along with something and being around people that actually I can't connect with.
And I think
Yeah.
I think that is the difference. Like I think the way that I was behaving back then, I'm not looking down on it or like criticizing myself. I don't even regret it, but it's the motivation behind it was that I just wanted so badly to be loved and accepted and thought of as cool and be part
Mm-hmm.
of this exclusive group of people that I didn't even think about, is this actually what I want to be doing? Is this like what is making me feel best? It was more just trying to band-aid a feeling that or a belief that I had about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't yeah, I don't judge person that person being me like back then. It's just I recognize that the way that I was behaving, I was putting myself into risky situations because I wanted so badly to like have people love me. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
that if I went along with it and I found myself in that bathroom, that meant that I was finally cool and accepted and loved, by those
Mm-hmm.
people. When the truth is like, and this doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but it certainly was the case for me. Like when I stopped hanging out with those people, they didn't really care. Like,
Mm.
it was a friendship based on circumstance, not based on like deep roots.
Yeah. It's funny because I think you and I both have enough self awareness that we pay attention to how we're feeling in certain situations and where when we're around certain people.
Yeah.
And when I find myself surrounded by people that the goal is to get wasted, it can be hard for me not to feel judgmental of the other people and for me not to
Mhm.
project my own stuff onto them, like project onto them the idea that they're not actually having a good time because
Mhm.
I'm not having a good time. Or if I was doing what they were doing, I wouldn't be having a good time.
Yeah.
And I recognize that that is not fair
Yeah.
of me to do. That's not a good quality for me to have. And also, like, if I'm not having a good time, then it's probably good a good idea for me to get out of the situation versus like
Yeah.
staying there and making a judgment about other people cuz maybe they are having a good time. In my mind, I'm like
Mhm.
these people are lonely. They're looking for connection because that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
That was my history with it. But that is not necessarily everyone else's history with all of that and with what they're
Every
doing.
everyone's version of a good time looks different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
up to them to like determine whether or not they're actually having a good time or they're behaving in a certain way to like make themselves feel better about something.
Mhm. Yeah.
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 That's not our responsibility to determine for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more like, what can I do in this situation? I should probably not have come to this, or I should
Mm.
probably leave early, or
Yeah.
whatever. And like,
Set
God
about.
bless you all.
God bless you all.
May God bless your souls. Yeah.
I'm curious, like on the weed front, like what that's also like a consumable.
Hmm.
How has your relationship with like weed changed at all over the years and how you consume it?
When I was in high school, I had friends that smoked weed, and I tried smoking maybe once or twice, and I couldn't get high. And then
Mm.
I would just feel so left out because everyone else was high and I was not high. And I was like, this is awful. And I
Yeah.
was judgmental about that as well. Like when
Yeah.
I was younger, I definitely I was really scared of all of that. I was really scared of any drugs at all. And my thoughts around drugs have really shifted as I've gotten older. I think instead of drug abuse, it's more drug misuse, because I think that there are a lot of quote unquote drugs that can actually be super helpful,
Yeah.
and when used, safely, are great. I mean, I've done some things where
Mm.
some substances that I've been like, this has actually expanded my mind in a way that I don't know that I would have been able to expand it
Yeah.
otherwise. And yeah, so like my thought process around all of that has really shifted. But yeah, I think when I was in San Francisco, I really got more into weed. Was never crazy on it. I'm still not. I just, especially with like winding down in the evening, or if I want to do something like instead of drinking that
Yeah.
feels kind of fun, and watch something funny, or animal documentaries, or like space stuff. Like, sure, I could do this with a little buzz and like think about my
Yeah.
existence.
Yeah.
So that's where I am at this point. Like, I definitely don't do it all the time, but when I do it, I enjoy it.
Mm.
Yeah.
That makes
I
sense.
even like started writing things down,
Yeah.
like making notes, because I will feel like I have these very profound thoughts, which I think is a
Mhm.
very common thing with people that are smoking weed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but
had
yours are
but mine are
profound.
actually profound.
That's right.
No, but I had this thought a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember if I've talked about it on the pod, but I was high and I was in bed trying to go to sleep, and I had this thought of like, I have my own blocks around sleeping. What am I
Mm.
getting from not falling asleep right now? Like,
Mm.
this to an extent is my choice to
Mm.
not fall asleep, which sounds crazy, but like that's what came forward. And I feel like ever since then, my thinking around sleep has shifted. So that's been kind of cool.
Mm.
Yeah, like my choices around bedtime have been different,
Mm.
and that's been very helpful. So I don't know. I think it can be a nice tool.
Yeah.
I know you don't partake a lot, but like, what is your
I know you
experience?
don't partake.
What's your experience?
Well, I went through a period where I was smoked a lot of weed.
Uh-huh.
Like maybe 5 months where I smoked like almost every day.
Hmm. Would it be like during the day or?
Yeah, during the day sometimes, definitely in the evenings. Never like during the work day, but like
Hmm.
right after work or on the weekend during the day. And the reason I did that was because I was in a relationship with a person that smoked even more than me at that moment.
Hmm.
So during that time. So I think it was more, I mean, it was like this thing again with the rebelliousness. I remember when I was in high school and my mom and I were borrowing a family member's car and we found weed in the dashboard. And my mom was like, and this person that owned this car was a full grown adult and like could absolutely make their own decisions and it was fine and like not dramatic. But my mom was like, I'm gonna have to talk to them about this. Like, just very disappointed. Like, the attitude was very, and my mom has, I don't think she'd mind me sharing this. Like, she went to Berkeley,
Hmm.
so like for college, so like the woman had smoked some weed in her day. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But just like the attitude for me, like growing up, was very much like Oh no, they're really
Mhm.
going down the deep end. So I felt like it wasn't something I was supposed to do. So that I think definitely has to do with like the partying and like drugs and sex and all of those things kind of weaved together for me, and weed was part of that. And so when I started dating the person I was in a relationship with, like feeling like, oh, this is so cool, and like this is so rebellious, and like, oh, you smoke all the time. And very, very quickly, because we were smoking a lot, I started realizing, whoa, like actually this doesn't feel that good. We're
Mm.
never fully present with each other because we're just always high. And
Yeah.
like we have to get high to like enjoy hanging out with each other. That is a problem.
Mm.
There's something wrong here. And I was doing it because I was filling a void of wanting to be loved. And they were doing it they were also filling a void. It wasn't just as a way to like become more enlightened or understand more about yourself, or as a medicine for something like sleeping. It was as a medicine for filling a deep void that was being avoided.
Avoid.
So I definitely don't have issues now with weed because it feels a lot more normal to me, because I think because I went through that period of my life, but also because like I have lots of people in my life now that smoke every once in a while, and it's just like a thing to do occasionally. And I think that is especially with weed, because it's not a harmful substance. I do know like people used to say that it wasn't addictive. I definitely think it, like maybe the substance isn't addictive, but the feeling that you get from it and like the way that you can escape other
Mhm.
feelings because of the effects of weed, I think that definitely can be addictive. But
Mhm.
yeah, but I enjoy smoking weed like every once in a while for fun, like with people. But
Mhm.
I've also had a really bad experience with getting high, not fainting, but like I thought I was gonna die. like, like I was really paranoid. I was with I was with people that I like outwardly felt safe around, but internally like felt very unsafe around.
Yeah.
And I think my body felt that even stronger when I was smoking. And then therefore, like I had a massive panic attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a really bad experience. And I've always since then been kind of afraid of getting too high and having an experience like that again. And I think that's also been a deterrent for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how for some people it can dull certain things for them and like they
Yeah.
can use it for coping. Whereas a
Yeah.
lot of the time for me, I think that it heightens things at
Yeah.
times. So, like, if I'm
Yeah.
not in a great mindset, I probably should not be using marijuana. I
Yeah.
probably should not be doing any of that
I feel that.
because yeah, it for they say with any drug it's set and setting. Like what's your mindset? What is your
Yeah.
setting? Like are you around people that you trust? Are you
Yeah.
in a mindset where you would be willing to think about these things at a deeper level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that way with alcohol too. I know people use it to feel better and to numb feelings, but for me, it just makes the feelings louder. If I am sad and I drink, then I am like inconsolable.
Mm.
I know that it does that for me, which is so interesting because it numbs it for other people. And I remember when I was going through my breakup a few years ago, I didn't drink for like 6 months because I drank a couple of times at the beginning of it. And I was like, it made it so much worse.
Mhm.
And I felt kind of jealous of people where it numbed their feelings because I was like, I would like to forget how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And like in the long
Yeah.
run, it ended up being a really good thing that I couldn't numb my feelings and I had to work through them. But yeah, it is interesting how different people react to it differently.
That was definitely a thing when Jeff and I broke up for the month that we broke up that
Yeah.
I don't know, like I was we were just talking about this recently, but like the week after he left,
Mm.
like the faucet just turned off and I didn't cry at all.
Yeah.
And I think I was just like in shock, I guess. But I really wanted to be present for all of my feelings. And I think that I was just at this point in my life where I had already had like 6 month periods, like 9 month periods of not drinking
Yeah.
that I was like, this feels really like a very important thing for me to be present for, and to
Yeah.
just like allow myself to feel. And the first week, like I felt nothing and that was
Mm.
fine. And then I started feeling things again and would just like lay down on the ground and cry when I needed to cry. But I think that if I had, I didn't end up having to get over the relationship because we got back together. But I think that me drinking or using something to like take the edge off would have slowed down my ability to like move through what I was moving through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's different for everybody. I think that like taking the edge off, as they say, for something that is incredibly, incredibly painful, and like you don't feel like you have the tools to deal with. I don't know if this is a bad thing to say, but I think that like having a certain amount of coping mechanisms can be very helpful until
Yeah.
you're ready to like step into the actual feeling of the thing.
I so agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause like to do it all at once, if you're not prepared,
Yeah.
feels like you're dying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't want that for
Sometimes it
people.
feels like you're dying even if you are prepared, though.
Well, yes.
But yeah, I
But
think
also, I think that there's like a trust that this feels like the worst thing I've ever felt, but I also know that I will get through it versus
yeah.
this is the worst thing that I've ever felt. And I don't know if I can get through it.
Yeah, and I think it also has to do with all the other factors of your life, like your surrounding and your support system. And like, are you in a place where you can face these things, or do you need to make sure you get to that place before you can start facing them and like cope in the meantime, you know? Like, you don't have to
Yeah.
do everything all at the same time. Like, take it one step at a time and like get yourself into a position for like your best success first, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to cope with things. But like
Yeah.
also understanding that if you're using certain coping mechanisms that could potentially be harmful to you in the long run, then like trying to find other coping mechanisms, because like it is okay to like drink too much and cope like that, but it's not actually going to help you. You know, it is like it could potentially be harmful and you could put yourself in harmful situations like
Hmm.
as a result of that.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. I didn't know we were going to talk about drinking.
I didn't either, but I liked how the conversation went.
Yeah. We just
Yeah.
talk about whatever we want to talk about,
It's
see what
perfect.
comes up.
Something good always comes up.
If anyone has anything that they'd like to add about drinking, weed, coping mechanisms,
Mm,
feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
yeah, we would.
Okay, everyone. See you in a couple weeks.
See you in a few weeks. Bye.